Man, now that's barely gone. All right, we're live. Welcome into Dwyer's Den. We've had quite a bit of technical difficulties. Hopefully, this goes decently well. But if you weren't here for the first episode a couple weeks ago, this is Dwyer's Den. It's underneath the ASM Sports Network. We've got a website now. It's really crappy, but you should still go check it out anyway. ASMSportsNetwork.com. We run it ourselves, so be nice. These cute fellas, they write some articles. They're gonna have their own shows. Boys, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Yes, Eagles fan Coy here. As Steve mentioned, I've been writing articles and throwing them up on the site. The podcast will come eventually, but right now I'm going to stick to article writing for at least a little bit. I'll probably switch over to some fantasy-focused stuff as we get into that season.
Yep, I'm Matty Bat. I love the Vikings. I'm posting on TikTok on our Amish Shed Movers TikTok. Go follow us there. We do post quite a bit on there. We're lacking on our articles, and I have my own podcast that I haven't even started yet. Bat Cave Blitz. Gonna start that here soon, but Steve's podcast is going well, so we're glad to be guests here with him. So.
Well, thanks, boys, for joining. And just so everyone knows, you can find all of us everywhere. ASM Sports Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. You can find a specific Dwyer's Den page at Dwyer's Den on Twitter. And if you want to follow me directly, at SDwyer Esquire right there on your screen. That's all.
Yeah, you're almost at 1,500. Is that what I saw earlier today?
Oh yeah, we're creeping up to 1,500. We're like 1,270, something like that. So
there we go.
We're getting pretty big over in Broncos country. So you guys know this is a happy new league year. This is the official day of the league year. Tampering for free agency started on Monday, so we've had a bunch of deals going through, and I wanted to talk about some of it. So. Obviously, I'm going to talk about all my Broncos deals. I saw Matt had a Bronco deal or two in his doc. So you know what? We're going to go through our favorite deals. Coy, throw one out there. What's your favorite deal? What do you like?
So my favorite deal, I'm going to go off cue a little bit there just to start us off. Why not throw everything off? I really liked what the Raiders did in bringing in Geno Smith. I know it wasn't a free agent signing, but it was right along this past week that they traded for him, sent a third-round pick, and then are re-signing him to a longer contract. So I think that was a good move by the Raiders franchise. There was not really a great QB option out there, at least this year. Their draft pick at 6 put them in a weird spot where they'd be getting the second, maybe even third best quarterback if they were to go from that position. So I think getting Geno, a solid bridge quarterback or gap quarterback, is the right play. I think Geno can bring them to the playoffs. Whether he can win a Super Bowl or not, that's yet to be determined. I do trust Pete Carroll to put together a pretty good team over there and a well-run organization. So I just like it overall. It brings stability to the franchise, and they're going to see at least average quarterback play for the first time in quite a few years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to say something about that. I like the Pete Carroll and Geno Smith combination there. Like, they've known each other for years. So I think that's going to work out really well. The Raiders really haven't had a good quarterback in that system in quite some time. So I like that they're leaning on like a veteran to try to improve their offense, especially like with their younger receivers they have. And I like it because, like Coy said, like the QBs coming out of the draft aren't very good, and where they lie, it's a great pick, and I think it frees them up for getting maybe Genty for running back, so they could stabilize that position too. So I think it's a great pick overall.
Yeah, I think a move like that probably screams Genty. That's probably who they're going to go. If they don't, I really hope he falls to 20. I think there's going to be someone who falls, and on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm pretty confident that Denver's going to end up scooping them up. I'm going to go a little off kilter. I'm going to follow you in that. Since we're talking about Russ to no, not Russ. Sorry, Seattle to the Raiders. Why don't we talk about the Sam Darnold deal? For me, I don't know. Like, I know we got a Vikings fan in here, but 3 years, 110 mil for a guy who's only had 1 year of looking really good, and he's definitely in a really good system. Look at Kirk Cousins. He was there, and yeah, sure, he's coming off an Achilles injury this past year, but he was pretty god awful before he got benched. So 3 years, 110. I don't know. That's a lot for me.
Did you watch every single Vikings game last year? Darnold, yeah, he played great for us. We didn't really have a great offensive line, but KOC made him to who he is. I would like to see if Mike McDaniel could, or whatever the hell his name is, the head coach over there, can sprout him into being something. But I really think it was just KOC making Sam Darnold a better player. I mean, he made Kirk better. Look at Kirk when he went to the Falcons. Yeah, I know he had the Achilles injury, but KOC was the main chess piece there. And I think they paid too much for Darnold. I think they should have, maybe paid out one year for 15 million and gave him a shot, and then gave him a long-term deal after that if he proved it. But I don't know. It seems like they're rebuilding there in Seattle, so maybe it was a good move.
Yeah, it's tough right now. I think this offseason, if anything, shows how important it is to have a good quarterback on your team. Because right now there's not a lot of options. I like Cam Ward coming out of college this year. Shador is questionable. There's people questioning whether he's even going to go in this top 15. And all these free agents, they're really not all that great. And it obviously shows when Sam Darnold's getting a $100 million contract. But I will say it's just the nature of the NFL right now. If you have one good season, which we cannot take away what Sam Darnold did last year, he was one game away from being the number one seed in the NFC. His team won 14 games. Granted, like Batson, you said, KOC put that together. The Vikings had a really good base around him, so maybe it won't be as comfy cozy over in Seattle, but I think he proved that he can at least play good enough to make his team get into the playoffs, and that's probably all Seattle's looking for right now. I'd also like to throw out, it's only really a 3-year deal if you look at it. In the stretch of, I think the first 2 years are guaranteed, and then the third year they have a little more guaranteed money on it. So it's not as bad as some contracts we've seen for some of these mediocre guys. And $100 million is not a lot at the quarterback position anymore. Jordan Love had 8 good games and got paid $250 million. So one whole season for $100 million, I'll take that if I'm a Seattle fan. And at least it gives you something similar to that Geno situation with the Raiders. It gives you something going into the season knowing my quarterback is at least serviceable. Is he the best of the best? No, but we're not going to have to watch Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell or Sam Howell, whoever it would have been going out there. We're not going to have to watch that.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of wondering why they thought that was a good decision, because as Matt mentioned, they seem to be rebuilding. They let go of DK Metcalf. They let go of Tyler Lockett. There's a lot of uncertainty in their backfield, and I'm not quite sure what their defense looks like. I mean, it's probably going to be like that's what Mike McDonald is really known for. And they were pretty solid this year. I don't know how many losses they've had on that side of the ball, but it seems like a pricey gap at quarterback. And if it works out, he might keep you in that middling range to where it's you're not going to get as good of talent as maybe you could have, So I'm not sure how that'll work out for them.
I'm not going to bash them too much for trading Geno either. I mean, they got a 3rd-round pick out of it, and it sounds like from reports that they made Geno an offer. Geno just didn't think it was enough money. So it's not like they didn't want to keep him around. They just weren't willing to pay him what he wanted, and that's just how things go. It's a business after all, and so they got a 3rd-round pick out of a QB that wanted more money than they were willing to give.
All right, well, let's move on to a deal somebody likes. How about you, man? Let's hear what you got. Give us a deal.
I'm not gonna say the free agent signing that was one of my favorites, because I don't want to make you too excited on here, Steve. It was Hufanga, but I do have another one. This is kind of off script. Didn't really put it on my doc, but Najee Harris, I do like that deal. I know it's a short-term deal, 1 year, $5.25 million. Yes, it's a running back, but the Chargers, they really need a stable running back. Najee Harris, I feel like, is like a bell cow. He never gets hurt. J.K. Dobbins was hurt throughout the year. Gus Edwards did absolutely nothing with them. So I'd like to see how that Chargers offense with McConkey and Herbert actually work with like a decent running back in there. I'm not saying Najee Harris is great, but for the deal that they got on him, 1 year, $5.25 million, I think that's a great serviceable deal. And I think he'll live up to that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty solid deal. And for comparison, a guy that left Denver, he got a 1 year, $3 million deal with Dallas. So Javonte, he was pretty good as a rookie, as a young guy, but then he got hurt, and it hasn't been good since. I think it's pretty similar with Najee, but I don't know what his injury history is. I just know he's been a little less productive the last couple of years. But like you said, he's a big guy. He can handle a big workload. And, that last year with Big Ben, he had over 100 targets, maybe receptions as well. Like, dude can play every single down if you need him to. And I don't think the Chargers retained Dobbins, so they really needed to fill a hole there. I was actually hoping Denver might make a run at Harris because we have holes in that position as well. But just given Herbert and that offense a little bit more stability and a little bit more weaponry, that's probably going to pay off pretty well for them.
Oh, yeah, I don't have too much to add. I have Harris in our Dynasty League, and I'm very happy he signed with the Chargers. There was a lot of places I was worried he was going to end up, but the Chargers is probably one of the best case scenarios. So,
yeah.
Check down City. Cole, you haven't given us one that you like yet, so let's hear what you like.
I mean, hey, I like the Smith one, but I'll throw it to another team too that I think has been doing good things so far, and that is Tennessee Titans. They just signed Zeitler to play guard for them, and then they played, I believe it's Dan Jones is his name. It's the left tackle from the Steelers. They paid early on in the offseason. So I don't necessarily agree with the contracts. They gave a lot of money to probably just a slightly above average left tackle, but at the same time, they're looking like they're going to be getting Cam Ward in this draft, and what better way to start his tenure there than with a beefed up offensive line. I think they're doing things right. They're beefing up the O-line before getting a quarterback rather than getting a nice QB, maybe like the Texans, and then watching him get sacked 60 plus times in a year. So they're definitely putting together a decent roster. They're not going to be competitive this year. I think they're still a few years out from that, but it's good to see a team at least taking the right steps towards building around a young QB.
Yeah, what scares me a little bit there is sorry, Steve, to cut you off. No, they just got rid of that Nick Westbrook-Akeen, and all they have is, I don't know, their receiver room scares me. Maybe they'll draft like a decent wide receiver, but I know like Cam Ward, like you're saying, like he's going to be protected well, but like his offensive weapons, I mean, he's got Tony Pollard, he's got Calvin Ridley. They're like kind of guys. He doesn't have like a superstar. So hopefully they draft, one of the top wide receivers if they get the chance to. I'm not sure what their draft picks are, but hopefully they add on to the wide receiver room there because it's pretty scarce.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to give somebody credit for beefing up the O-line, I think it's going to be the Chicago Bears. I think I agree with what Coy said in terms of, throwing a little more money than they should have on the offensive line. That's what Tennessee keeps doing. They just keep overpaying these mediocre guys. But you got the Bears, they have Caleb Williams, who's supposed to be the next generational prospect. They get Jonah Jackson from the Rams for a 6th. They get Joe Thuney from Kansas City for a 4th. And then they go out and they sign probably the best center in free agency, Drew Dahlman from Atlanta. I'm not sure what their tackles look like, but I know that their interior was pretty abysmal. They didn't have much of a ground game. So I think if we're going to give anyone credit for really beefing up the trenches, I'd throw it to the Bears.
I would love to give them credit, except I like the way the Titans are doing it better, and they're beefing it up before their number 1 overall draft pick gets there, not after you watch them struggle for an entire year. So if the Bears did this last offseason and then drafted Caleb Williams, I would have been praising them a lot more than probably what they deserve now, because I'm not going to give them their credit when it's obvious that they needed to address those positions because
Does that mean that you're admitting that Will Levis is not going to be the MVP this year?
Probably. Although, if for some crazy reason the Titans do not draft a quarterback, I will be back on the Will Levis trade.
Remember when he said Will Levis for MVP? It was like plus 1,500.
Oh man, I was so caught up in the possibility of Calvin Ridley scoring 80 touchdowns. Then it didn't happen.
And then Mason Rudolph outplays him.
My fantasy team struggled because of that too.
Dude, I tried to warn you about Calvin Ridley, man. I tried to warn you.
Oh man, I had high hopes.
Well, you know what? I think we'll switch over to one of my favorite signings. Matt mentioned it a little bit. You know, we got to give our Denver Broncos some love because they've signed a tight end, a linebacker, a safety, all big, major holes filled. But my favorite signing, one of Matt's favorite signings, Talanoa Hufanga, 3-year deal, $45 million, only $20 guaranteed. This dude is a rock star. He's a bullet coming out of the safety position, plays up on the line a little bit. He'll knock your teeth out, but his only issue is a little bit of he's got a little bit of an injury history. So I'm excited as a Broncos fan. I'm freaking ecstatic. Like we need a little bit of smash mouth up in there. And our second safety position was really lacking last year. As much as I like PJ Locke, he just wasn't cutting it.
Dude, I remember watching that Browns game against the Broncos, and Jameis Winston was just lighting Locke up. I think he threw.
No, that was freaking.
That wasn't Locke.
That was Levi Wallace. He got cut
okay.
the next day.
All right, Locke still sucks though. No, I like Hufanga. He fits Denver's their defensive personality very well. They're like smash
hunting that Sean Payton likes to do. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're good. No, I just think he's a big guy. Like Steve said, he's gonna hit you in the teeth. He could blitz around the edge, so I think it's a good pick. So
it's kind of cool having him, and I don't know if you guys paid attention to Brandon Jones at all, but they kind of play similarly, where they're both pretty rangy. They can both play in the box, and they both can just dice people up. It's going to be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see it. I'm not a huge fan of paying safeties, so I'm always hesitant when I see a safety get paid. But you guys didn't give him like top of the market, so I guess I can let it slide a little bit.
That'll bring if we want to start with our dislikes, that'll lead me right to one of my biggest failures of the free agency signings. It's one of the guys I love. Want me to go for it? All right. So I love this guy. He's my favorite Vikings player other than JJ. Cam Bynum signed for 4 years, $60 million for the Colts. I really dislike this signing by the Colts. I don't know what they're thinking. Bynum was decent, but he also had a veteran Harrison Smith by his side throughout the whole season, throughout his whole career in Minnesota. And the Colts really don't have somebody like that as safety right now. And I think he really leaned on Harrison Smith. Cam Bynum, like his open field tackling is not good. He's not a big guy. And if the Colts don't really, I feel like they're more of like a man coverage defense, and Cam Bynum is way better in zone. I think he's going to struggle. And I think to Coy's point, I mean, he was like way overpaid, 4 years, $60 million. And he's not really like he's not like a proven safety. So I don't like that move by them at all.
Yeah, I don't know Cam Bynum that well. I just knew, he's a top tier, top of the line free agency player. He's young, right? And George Payton, our GM, has Vikings connections. So a lot of people were saying, if we don't get Javon Holland or whoever, we're going to go after Cam Bynum. And I just pretended to like it. Very, very happy with Hufanga. But yeah, I don't know. Coy, do you know much about this Bynum fella?
Not a ton. I will say I looked into him a little bit more after I saw the money he was getting, as in like, maybe I should know this guy's name a little better. But yeah, he looked like a solid player. He he had decent stats for a safety overall. He was apparently, he definitely wasn't one of those guys that was flashy that your average NFL fan's going to know the name of. So it took me by surprise a little bit, but we see that happen year after year. I mean, I'm not a GM, so there's guys that fly under my radar and get paid and are well worth it. But if Batson, our household Vikings fan here, says he was overpaid, I'm going to believe him and say he was probably overpaid.
Yeah, his energy is out of this world. You know, he was the one doing the fashionable dances in the end zone. He kind of lit the NFL up on TikTok with all the dances and stuff, the celebrations after fumble recoveries, interceptions, all that. He's great for that, but he's got to learn how to open field tackle because he just gets stiff-armed right out of the way. Maybe he should hit the gym or something, but I don't know. I don't hate the guy. Like I said, he was one of my favorite players. I loved his energy, but I think they overpaid for him. So,
sorry, I was messing around with the comment thing. No one's watching right now anyway, so no one saw that. Yeah, man. Cam Bynum. I can't stand people who can't open field tackle. Like that's one of my if I had to pick like one quality of someone on defense, you got to be able to open field tackle. I went to a Broncos Jets game in 2018. Freaking Bilal Powell and Isaiah Crowell, the two of them put 300 yards up on us because they just kept running like outside zones and little pitches and halfback toss. 300 freaking yards just because we couldn't. And you know what? I went to the Miami game. 2 years,
you should stop going to
ago,
games, Steve.
and the same freaking thing. It's terrible. It's like, please, for the love of God, someone learn how to tackle.
70-21 or something like that.
70-20. Thanks.
Yeah, that's tough.
Sorry.
Coy, how about you? You got a signing that you really dislike?
Not that I really dislike.
Don't go there. Don't do it.
I won't throw all green light. You're good. Because I can't put that one out to the public just yet. I have to sit on it a little while. Because I'm not a big fan of the Greenlaw signing right now. But if I say too much on it and then he comes out and plays like he did 3 years ago, I'm gonna eat way too much crow if I do that. So
hold on a second. We got Rico Dowdle on a 1 year to Carolina, $6.25 million. I kind of like that.
It's good. I mean, it sucks for fantasy, if anything, because now you have just three guys that they're gonna rotate between.
Oh yeah, they got who did they draft? Who was that guy they had?
Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they released Miles Sanders, but then they still who else? They got another
Chuba
guy.
Hubbard they paid.
Chuba.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
They have
Chuba
that's a bad situation. They're all like same skill level. Well, we don't know about Jonathan Brooks. I think he's gonna run that backfield.
Yeah, no, I drafted him a lot in fantasy too, hoping he'd come back second half of the year, and then that did not happen. So
No.
That's pretty disappointing. I guess for all you fantasy folks out there, stay away from the Carolina backfield.
That's nothing. I will say
who's their receiver? Who do they have a receiver?
Leggett and
Thielen still.
Yeah,
Thielen. Oh, we got a hey, thank you, whoever liked our your dad did. A shout out, Mr. Batson. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dad.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I will. Despite I don't want to sound like a hypocrite here because I'm going to say the one I dislike is the Justin Fields to the Jets. I didn't like that signing. It just seems like it's not an answer at this point. I know I just was in support of the Geno Smith and the Sam Darnold and all of that, but the Jets needed a fresh start, and I don't think bringing in Justin Fields is that. Justin Fields has proven that he can't pass the ball in the NFL. He's fun to watch, run around on the field.
Oh, that's
my God!
You are wild for this.
He didn't do well in Pittsburgh, where everybody does well. And you know what? Sure, his record showed that he did okay, but Justin Fields is going to fail as a New York Jet. and the Jets are going to be mediocre for the next 2 years and not get that top draft pick they need to try to replace him.
I do agree with you along the lines of how much they paid him.
Matt, you want to take this on?
we will tag team this. I do agree with you in one stance is they paid him way too much. 2 years, $40 million for, like you said, he's kind of unproven, but he can't be worse than what Aaron Rodgers provided for him last year. He could run out of the pocket.
I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers had much better stats than what Justin Fields put on tape, especially on a
Fields only started like
but
5
on a per-game basis. Fields was not good for the Steelers.
He won them games.
Yeah, because
he was like 4-2 as a starter.
Insane. Right, and Russell Wilson brought him to the playoffs. Do you want Russell Wilson as your quarterback? the Steelers were
no one wants Russell Wilson as their quarterback. No. Dude, Justin Fields was operating that offense much better. I saw one of their games in person. He had the running element, he had the passing element, he had the deep ball. Maybe it wasn't a moon ball like what Russ has, but he did a great job. He deserves a chance. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, let's get it done. Who's their coach? Aaron Glenn, right? They're going to be
nice defensive-minded head coach. Will get him right.
No, it's going to be fantastic. They just gotta gotta help him out. They just gotta help him out a little bit.
He's one of those failed top first-round quarterbacks that gets drafted, and then everybody thinks when he goes to a new team he's going to be the next big thing, and it just doesn't.
How's it a bad signing? Like, what if they're just using him as a high upside bridge until they get their guy?
And that's why I said I would sound like a hypocrite a little bit. But my counter argument to that would be he hasn't shown that he can.
He was with the Bears, Coy. He was with the Bears.
He hasn't shown that he can
in Pittsburgh. He didn't even start
quarterback play.
The best prospect in the last 25 years is with the Bears, and he looked worse than Fields did.
Yeah,
Caleb Williams looked worse than Fields did.
Yeah, I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan either.
And Caleb Williams had more weapons than Fields did when he was there.
That's true. 100%. That's true. Although Fields did have DJ Moore, and I love DJ Moore. He's top 15 for me. I know that's controversial. I love DJ Moore.
Yeah, but Caleb had DeAndre Swift and Keenan Allen too.
I don't want people to clip this and send it to me when I have Justin Fields as a top 10 fantasy quarterback going into next year. Because he can run the ball, and that's valuable for fantasy. He just can't pass the ball, which is what I like my quarterbacks in the NFL to be able to do.
All right. Know what? When he brings the Jets to at least 8 wins, we're clipping this.
If this is like my Will Levis take, he's going to win MVP next year. I mean, he's
Fellas, I think there's a good segue to the way I want to sort of close out this episode. I want to talk about sort of predictions as to where certain people are going to go, and I thought it would be a fun little thing to just do some quarterbacks. So I'm going to throw out 3 guys that I think are kind of fun. These are fun ideas for me. Aaron Rodgers to the Minnesota Vikings. Russell Wilson to the New York Giants because apparently he's visiting them, and the Browns. And why would you go to the Browns? That would leave Pittsburgh with their best QB option, Jameis Winston. Give me Jameis in Pittsburgh, baby. Give me famous Jameis in Pittsburgh. Throwing it up to DK, George Pickens, and whatever safeties are on the other team they're playing.
So I think Aaron Rodgers ends up in Pittsburgh, but I'm not counting out if he goes to Minnesota. I would like it I would prefer if he went to Minnesota. 1, for the whole he's just mimicking Favre thing. That would be hysterical. But 2, if you're looking at it from Minnesota's point of view, they brought in a bunch of talent this free agency already. And if they bring in Aaron Rodgers, it's kind of like they're all in by now moment. Because right now they bought in. They're ready to win now. They're in that they pay people as if they're going to win now. And they're going to be going into it with J.J. McCarthy. That's just it's scary. You're a Vikings fan, Benson. How are you not scared going into next year?
I'm very scared, but I do not want Aaron Rodgers leading my team. I want JJ McCarthy, even if we go, if we get 7 wins, 6 wins, I don't even care. I want JJ McCarthy to take off. I want him to take off. That's what I want him to do.
It seems the Datsons.
And I want to pick up, Taylor Heineke or somebody behind him, or Jameis Winston or Carson Wentz even behind him. That's what I want. I don't want Rodgers. I don't want to have to pay him.
You don't want Rodgers to take you to the conference championship game and then throw the worst interception you've seen in your life.
Cross-body pick in 2009. Oh, no,
the I don't want that.
No, because that would happen. It would happen. I don't trust him at 41 to be as good as he once was. I mean, he clearly showed he's not with the Jets. And him and KOC are going to butt heads like crazy, so I don't think it's a good match.
Listen, he put up some pretty decent numbers, and you give him Jay Jettas and your other fellas there. Who the heck do you have? Jordan Addison. Do you still have Jalen Naylor? Is he still?
Yeah.
Is he still? Yeah, that's a good receiving core. And you remember back in the days when he had Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, James Jones.
Vikings
Jones.
fans.
Like, come on.
They watched Aaron Rodgers run the division for 20 years. They don't want to see him anymore.
No, if he's in a Vikings uniform, I'll kill myself.
All right, well,
I want
you guys
our franchise to start.
You guys got any last quarterback predictions? Any last comments here before we close out?
Shedeur Sanders falls out of the top 20 picks in the NFL draft. That'll be my prediction. So I don't know if I'll be on again before April.
All right.
My guess is Russell Wilson will start somewhere at quarterback next season.
That's why I think he would go to New York rather than Cleveland, because he's just one of
Kenny Pickett.
He wants the show. He wants the show.
He's gonna start somewhere, I think. Yeah.
My prediction is Bo Nix is MVP. There we go.
Easy.
I know I bent the rules a little bit there, but ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. That's Dwyer's Den, episode 2. We got Matty Babb, we got Eagles fan Coy, and your host, Stephen Dwyer, S. Dwyer Esquire. You can find me on social media with that little @ down there below my beautiful face. Tune in next week. Throw out some comments. Let us know what you want to see. This is going to be a lot of Broncos-based stuff because I'm a psychopath. But check out the website, ASM Sports Network. You'll see these two handsome fellas and their articles there. And eventually they'll have their own podcast as well. Shout out your podcast, fellas.
That's it. Why don't we call it Don't Be Coy? You'll see it when it's out. Again, probably closer to fantasy football season.
Mine is Batcave Blitz, so be sure to look that up once I'm get my feet running. So
ASMSportsNetwork.com, ASMSportsNetwork.com. Tune in, check it out, and we'll see you next week. Don't go changing on us, all right?